Why, hello, folks. So, I have been holding off on reviewing Styanax because he's gone through a round of fixes. If some people call it nerfs, but let's call it fixes. And I pretty much figured he would, because that's sort of been the case for most new Warframes that have come out. That they come out, people discover something weird and broken, they make videos about it. And then that gets fixed and they make more videos saying that, oh no, now they ruined the game. That happened with Gyre, for example. And I was one of the people who actually discovered oh, she's actually broken on release. Then that got fixed, and by fixed I mean that like her number 4 ability just became useless, and Gyre as a whole became sort of useless. So now Gyre is in a really, really bad state. So did the same thing happen to Styanax after his round of fixes? Because like what happened was that like you used to be able to chain his number 4 ability, so you can levitate in the air forever and just shoot spears forever while just regenerating energy from his 3. And you could also cast other abilities while you were in his 4. So it was a meme build, basically. People were just flying around the map. You could fly up in the ceiling and just shoot down arrows forever and recast rally points so you never ran out of energy. And that sort of was the gameplay that got removed, because that's not how they wanted Styanax to be played. Fair enough. Now, did he become worse? Like less powerful or anything because they removed that interaction? No, not at all. Some people saying this like it's a fun factor, right? That it's less fun to play him now because you can't be this flying turret who just shoots infinite spears on the ground. Okay, fine, if that's what you wanted to do. If you just wanted to be spamming the number 4 button for 5 minutes straight and just fly around the map doing this, sure. But if that's not really your cup of tea and you want some more sort of complex gameplay, now we can start looking at what Styanax can actually do. And what he actually can do is quite a lot. So it's a bit weird that Styanax is... Everyone got him, right? It was a login bonus for 2 weeks when he was released. So just log into the game, get Styanax. Now that thing is over now, so you can't do that anymore. So now, the way to get Styanax is to be past New War in content. And then you can do the break Narmer missions from the Drifters camp and level up with Carl's faction, and then you can get him that way. Which is very late game, very end game, and it's gonna take you like many weeks to level up that faction and get all the parts. So he is like extremely hard to get your hands on now if you didn't get him during those 2 weeks. Which is sad, because he is so beginner friendly. This is one of the best Warframes a new Warframe player could get their hands on. He's so good for beginners. He's good for late game players as well, don't get me wrong. But for beginners, because he has such a cool kit that just... everything sort of like harmonizes, kinda. And you can do pretty much everything you want to do. You have one ability that you can use to group enemies together, which is nice. You have one ability that can remove all of the enemy's defenses, which is nice. And you also heal yourself when you use it, if you hit enemies with it. You have one thing that he has that no other sort of early game Warframe has, and that is energy regeneration. He has an ability you can cast that just lets you regenerate your own energy. And the energy economy is like the biggest thing for a new player. You're always out of energy, so you can't use your abilities as much as you want to, because you always have to wait for an energy orb pickup or whatever. But nah, not Styanax. He can just regenerate his own energy at will, which is great. And while this is active, he can also regenerate his shields and get himself over shields. And then he has a cool ultimate attack that lets you launch spears in a barrage of spears at an area. It feels impactful. It feels cool. It feels like a proper ultimate ability. And then he has a passive that gives him increased crit chance based on his shields. The more shields he has, the better crit chance he has. It's not the biggest buff in the world, but if you can get it up to maximum, it's a decent buff to crit chance. However, this only affects his weapons, not his abilities. So even if you're at like 3,000 shields or whatever, it's not gonna make his number 4 ability stronger. It doesn't affect that at all. So what I want to talk about here is kind of like, he's pretty much like a beginner-friendly, less complex version of Revenant. That's sort of how I see Styanax. Revenant is the same. Revenant has one ability that is sort of like for crowd control, one ability for just bypassing enemy defenses, one ability to help him survive, and then a number 4 ability, which is a big, flashy area of attack thing that doesn't really synergize with the rest of his kit. And Final Stand doesn't really synergize with the rest of Styanax's kit. Why? Well, it does like slash damage and slash procs, but his number 2 ability, well, that just removes enemy armor. Otherwise, slash damage or like slash procs is good if you can't remove enemy armor, so you can just bypass their armor with slash procs. But Styanax can remove armor, so slash damage is not like the best damage type he could be doing. And his passive doesn't increase the damage of the Final Stand either. So if you're playing at really sort of like high levels of play, then this thing, his number 4 ability, it's not gonna do more damage than just your guns are going to be doing. Your guns are probably going to be out-damaging this 4th ability. So for high-level play, the 4th ability would be the ability you remove, because you just never have a reason to cast it. You just use his number 1, number 2, and number 3, and that's good. That's all you need. So for like, I don't know, a long endurance runs in Steel Path and stuff like that, just chuck Final Stand. Go Helminth, a better ability in there. We're going to be talking about Helminth options later on. And but for low-level play, oh my god, when you don't have like an Exceltra that looks like this with a cool Riven mod and a bunch of cool primed mods and a bunch of cool galvanized mods and the primary arcanes and all of that stuff, if you don't have that, then yes, his number 4 ability is going to do like a stupid amount of damage. It's going to clear entire rooms, and it feels good to use. So, like, all of this just... It's such smooth sailing, right? If you're just a new player going through the star chart. He can do everything. He can remove defenses. He can group enemies together. He can regenerate his own energy. He can regenerate his shields. He can regenerate his health. He has a cool ultimate bomb. Everything just clicks and feels good. So, he is a dream for a new Warframe player. But he's super hard to get his hands on now if you didn't get him in that 2-week window. You can't get him. By the time you do get him, if you're late game, then it's like, is he good enough to where you're going to want to switch out from what you're already doing to play Styanax instead? I don't know. Maybe. Like, he's good. He's good. But is he that good? Well, like, when it comes to stuff like just, doing Steel Path endurance runs, he can absolutely do it. Now, I've seen a couple of ways people build him that I do not agree with, and we're gonna go over those. Number 1, stacking shields, up to like as much as you can. You don't need to do that. You just need redirection. That's it. To give yourself like a hefty, almost 2,000 shield. You don't need to get it up to 3,000, because just with his abilities, you're going to get up to those 3,000 over shields or whatever anyway. And the thing is, he's not entirely reliant on shields. He has other methods of sustaining himself, because his number 2 can regenerate his health. So you have health gain, you have shield gain as well. He has pretty decent base stats for armor, health, and shields around the board. So what I would recommend is build for everything. To that end, here is my triple umbral Styanax, but because that's how I think he should be built. I think he should be built as an all-rounder and just be pretty like solid in all areas of defense instead of just like relying on shields or something, because that doesn't work on higher levels of play. Your enemies are gonna grind through the shields too quick for that. However, building him this way, he's just pretty tanky. He's just pretty tanky. And you got your arcanes. I like energize because I am running a negative efficiency build. So it's nice to just get those constant energy ups, but there are other ways of getting that. I am running arcane grace, which might seem a bit counterintuitive, but it is good to just get that healing consistently. You can get it with just a Thorough Strike anyway, so if you feel like you can juggle that and you don't need to worry about it so much, then you can swap out Arcane Grace for something else, I guess, if you want to. I do think Primed Sure-Footed is kind of necessary, because Styanax doesn't have any way of making himself status immune, and any Warframe that can't make themselves status immune, knockdowns is what's gonna kill you. So, you gotta be able to stay on your feet and move, because this is a very mobile frame. You gotta be, you can't just stand still and tank hits. You gotta be on the move constantly. Since I am running negative efficiency, I do want primed flow in there, because you want to have a huge energy pool. And the reason why I'm building him this way, because he has so much ability strength with this build, that you're getting an energy rate of 8 energy per second. So long as Rally Point is active. That is so much energy regen that you don't have to worry about how much it costs to play your abilities. They're quite cheap anyway, the Javelin and the Thorough Strike. They don't cost a whole lot at all. So with your energy regen from Rally Point, you're fine. You can scrap your efficiency. It also has the added bonus, since I am running Brief Respite in the Aura slot, that if your abilities cost more, then you get more shields back when you cast them. You can supplement that by using the Augur mod set, if you don't want to run like this dumb triple umbral thing I'm doing here. You can chuck in something like Augur Accord for more range. Augur Reach, or Augur Accord for more shield capacity. And that's gonna synergize with Brief Respite and give you even more shields back whenever you cast an ability, which is nice. Adaptation is in there because adaptation is another like 90% damage reduction, and adaptation does work with shields. It does provide damage reduction to your shields as well. You only need to have 200% ability strength to get a full armor strip from the Thorough Strike. But I do like bumping it up even more because I want that really juicy energy regen from Rally Point. And it also just, makes his ultimate do more damage, which is nice if you want to run with that. If you look at how you could improve him with the Helminth, like I said, that is for late game play. If you want to do like endurance runs and stuff like that, then the number 4 ability is most likely the ability you're going to be replacing. So, what would you want instead? Well, obviously, since if you are going to be running with shields, stuff like that, then I've seen some people use Pillage as a way of getting some shields back while also like stripping enemies. I'm not sure about this one because you can already do that with his abilities. His number 2 can already strip defenses, and while his number 3 is active, you are already regenerating shields with every kill. So this might be a bit overkill and just do sort of the same thing that his other abilities are already doing. A better one would probably be Resonator, the little rollerball from Octavia, because it attracts damage, it attracts, enemy aggression. The thing about Rally Point, his number 3 ability, is that it also aggroes enemies towards Styanax. So if you're in a group and you play number 3, suddenly all of the enemies are shooting at you. So you can counteract that with Resonator, and instead make them shoot at the rollerball, because this basically just shuts off enemy AI. It's also not like something that's on a constant drain, which is kind of risky if you're playing a negative energy build. So it just seems solid. With as much ability strength as I'm running, there's also an argument for stuff like Roar or Eclipse to increase your damage, or Sata's Whisper. Just give yourself a nice bump of void damage on top of the damage you're already doing. And that's probably going to represent a pretty significant damage increase with almost 300% ability strength. Possibly you could also run with something like Silence to reduce enemy aggro, but I'm not sure that's all that impactful. Now, if you are not running this super crazy endgame stuff, I also have like a budget version of how you build them, which is kind of like with the same effect. And it looks like this. You don't have primed sure-footed because, hey, maybe you don't even have the aura slot unlocked. But this is basically all you need. This is how beginner-friendly it is. Just stick in Vitality, Redirection, and Steel Fiber. Normal flow, normal streamline, because we need a bit more efficiency here to make things work. I am still using Blind Rage. That is one of the mods you get for doing the opening dragon doors on, or corrupted doors, whatever, on Deimos. If you run those Deimos nodes and you have the dragon keys and you open doors, you can get this one. Because it is necessary to get to at least 200% ability strength to really give this guy all the juice he needs for his armor strip. And also for the energy regen to be good enough to counteract the low efficiency. If you do not have Blind Rage, there are some options. There are some other things you could be doing. That would be, for example, running something like, let's see if we can find it here. Maybe chuck in Augur Secrets, so you can bump it up to at least. No, I replaced the wrong one. Sorry about that. No. So you can get like at least 154% strength, and then in the aura slot, instead of Brief Respite, you would put in Corrosive Prediction to just give enemies less armor, because that sort of works together with Augur Secrets. Now you're only reducing 77% of the enemy's defenses, but then you have another 18% on top of that with Corrosive Prediction, so you're stripping almost all the enemy defenses with just one cast of Thorough Strike. So something like this would work as well. But say you don't want to helmet anything away and you just sort of want to play Styanax the way he's designed to be played or meant to be played. Then you have this sort of like pretty nice, pleasant sort of gameplay loop of like you cast Rally Point and you always keep an eye in your lower right corner of the screen and make sure that Rally Point is always active. And then it's just a matter of use your number 1 to group enemies. Use your number 2 to remove enemy defenses, and then use your number 4 to wipe them down. Might need like maybe 2 casts or something, but these are very high level enemies. It's like classic level 190 corrupted heavy gunners, and they do go down from that. But as you can see, like even with the chunky amount of ability strength that I have, it's not the most impressive ult, right? In terms of damage. You can, of course, increase it a little bit if you were to have more ability duration. And then you would be like chucking more spears. However, having more ability duration would also mean that you are stuck in the air for longer. And being stuck in the air for longer means that you have to be stationary. And being stationary is typically a death sentence, especially if you are playing like on Steel Path. Granted, as you can see, I can move around quite freely while I am chucking these spears, but you know, it's still not ideal. I've seen some people use the airborne mods and Boreal's Hatred to give yourself like damage reduction while you're in the air. Don't do that anymore. That might have been a thing you could do with the meme build, but since you can't fly forever, I just think that's a waste of a mod slot at the moment. No, just stick to the normal gameplay loop. Just group enemies, remove their armor, and chuck spears. That's it. That's how you play Styanax. And in high level play, you stop using the number 4 and instead just kill enemies with your weapons, because your weapons are going to be doing more damage than his number 4. But you would still be using his number 3, his number 1, his number 2, and his number 4 would be whatever you put in the helmet slot instead. So it's very straightforward. He's very easy to play. He's very easy to sort of understand what you're supposed to be doing. He's pretty fun and pretty efficient. So yeah, he's not as tanky as some other Warframes. That's probably the complaint, that he does require a lot of mobility when you play him. And he does require some investment. Like, I have bumped up his shields, armor, and health, and I still gotta be on my toes when I play him. But if I am on my toes, I can easily clear like pretty high level stuff with him, and just I can do Steel Path, I can do the survival missions and stuff like that, and I don't have to rely on shield gating mechanics. I can stay alive anyway, if I know what I'm doing. But that's fun. That's fun to not have to be like brainless or whatever and just have to be on your toes. So my sort of like final review of Styanax, I'm gonna say for an endgame player, he's good. For a pretty new player, he is absolutely fantastic. And he checks most of the boxes for just being kind of an enjoyable Warframe to play. Nice aesthetics too, it looks really cool. All in all, I just think if you haven't actually tried him out yet, you should. Because you might be surprised by just how fun and efficient he still is, even after this round of so-called nerfs or whatever. So yeah, Styanax, he's good. He's good and you should play him.